Doesn't this make you smile? Desserts growing up for me was always a reward. It was always eat your peas and you can have dessert. Make sure you finish your meat, you can have dessert. I'm really excited to be able to share with you some techniques that you really have to follow and pay attention to. Let's get started. We're gonna make a chocolate pot de creme, which is a wonderful dessert. It's a small dessert, but extremely rich. The quality of anything that we make is partially based on the ingredients that we use, and then of course, the technique or our skills to be able to produce it. We want to use dark chocolate for this, but you could use a milk chocolate. You could even use a dark milk chocolate. To begin, we're gonna go ahead and prepare our garnish first, and that's just by taking our chocolate, a typical vegetable peeler, and just shaving down into it, into a bowl. You can see that. Go this way. You can go down, up and down if you like. We get our little chocolate shavings there. To make our pot de creme, we're going to start with half and half cream, half milk. And the great thing about this pot de creme, I say pot de creme, or in French, it's actually pot de creme. We don't have to bake it. Traditionally, you would make a custard, put the custard in your little pot, and then bake that in a bain-marie in the oven like a custard. In this case, we're going to go ahead and finish the cooking process in our sauce pot, flavor it with our chocolate, and we'll just be able to pour that into our little pots, our little pots, and that'll set for 4 hours, and then it'll be ready to go. Adding our cream, our milk, now while that's coming up to a simmer, we're going to go ahead and whisk our egg yolks and our sugar. Take our egg yolks. And our sugar. You can see we're not using a lot of sugar. We don't need to use a lot of sugar because we have our chocolate, which is sweetened with sugar. There's two ways for us to tell when it's done. I'm going to show you one way with using a wooden spoon where we just brush our finger across it. It creates a separation between the cream and it drips down slowly. You can see the thickness and the viscosity of that. You can tell that it's finished then. Or you can use a thermometer. And the thermometer we want to take up to 85 degrees Celsius. As chefs, professional chefs, we always use the metric system. So we're always using grams, Celsius, milliliters, liters, because it's much easier for us to divide and multiply. Ounces is a very difficult thing to work with for us. Cups are a very difficult thing to work for us. They're not as precise as measurement is with the metric system. Our weights and our volumes are much more precise in metric. So we're always, in our kitchens, we're always talking about grams and milliliters or liters or centiliters or Celsius. So we're gonna watch this, let it come up to a simmer. Be careful, don't really walk away because if the milk starts to boil, it's gonna boil over very, very quickly. And of course, you'll have a mess on your stove and you'll have to start again because whatever's boiled over in terms of the volume of that is gonna be reduced with the amount that's boiled over onto the stovetop. So we have everything ready to go here for this. So percentages in chocolate, you'll see that all the time that they're qualifying how much cocoa is in chocolate. 60%, 68%, 70%, 76%. That's the amount of cocoa nib that's in the chocolate. The rest is other products. It could be lecithin, it could be sugar, it could be vanilla. It could be different ingredients that they put in the chocolate depending on what they're trying to achieve. But that percentage represents the amount of pure chocolate that's in there. Now, with that said, that percentage also includes added cocoa butter. Because cocoa butter is part of chocolate, it qualifies as being part of that percentage. The cocoa nib is what really you want to focus on, how much cocoa nib's in there. And traditionally, there's anywhere between 4 and 6% added cocoa butter to your chocolate. So when you see something that says 74% chocolate, you actually have somewhere between 70 and 68% cocoa nib and the rest cocoa butter. The cocoa butter has a nice texture on your tongue, and that's wonderful. It's that fat that we love, that way that fat finishes. There we go, it boiled. Okay, just interrupt that. We just want to go ahead and temper now our egg yolks. We don't want to pour all of this in there at once because it's so hot, it'll cook the egg yolks, and that's not what we want. We want to bring the egg yolks up to temperature slowly by adding hot liquid to it. And any custard that you make, this is the typical procedure that you would use. Creme anglaise, ice cream base, quiche custard, any custard. Okay. I'll wipe off the edge there. You notice I don't like to pour liquids on the stovetop, because if I have an accident, then I have a larger mess to clean up than if I poured it on the countertop. So just mix that thoroughly. We want to have our chocolate here, so as soon as we reach 85 degrees Celsius, we want to stop the cooking process, because we don't want to curdle the eggs. If I left it on there to come up higher than 85 degrees, then you'll start to see the eggs start to curdle. Is that a bad thing? It is, because it's a textural thing. In this case, with the chocolate, it may not be as evident. But I don't want to give you an excuse to overcook your custard. I just want to let you know that if you do, you still may be able to salvage it because of the creaminess of the chocolate that you're going to add to it. You may not taste or you may not feel the texture of the curdled egg. So it's still not quite there, but I can see it's already starting to come up. So I'm just going to be very careful here, because remember, the fire here is a lot higher than 85 degrees Celsius. And we talk about that carryover temperature, and how the heat from this piece of cookware, which is conducting heat and also holding heat very well, how that carryover temperature can quickly overcook your custard. You can see where that little line is. Now, at 85 degrees, you don't have to worry about any salmonella in your eggs. You've cooked it to the temperature where it kills any bacteria. Again, when I talk about 85 degrees, I'm talking about Celsius. It's about 185 degrees in Fahrenheit. You can see it's even thicker on the spoon. You notice I always take it off the heat when I'm testing it, just to make sure that it doesn't carry over or continue to cook beyond the temperature that I'm looking for. Okay. I can feel also, as I move my spoon through my custard, I can feel that it's getting thicker. Okay, I'm happy. Turn my fire off. Bring it over. Add my chocolate. Use my whisk. The temperature of the custard will melt the chocolate. So you see me do this. I'm pushing my whisk end into the corner. Just to make sure I get any of that chocolate that may be stuck in those corners, but I'm sure it's not. So it resembles a pudding, which is one of my favorite things to eat. Okay. Now, this is finished. What we like to do is we like to get a little air into it, just to make it a little lighter, more of like a mousse consistency, where we whipped whipped cream into it, into a mousse. In this case, we're gonna just take our stick blender. Again, this is totally optional. You don't really need to do this. Now, if I lifted this out with it on, it's gonna be all over me. So I go all the way to the bottom of the pan. I'm trying to make it even deeper right there by lifting the edge of the pot up. And you see how that just gives me a much smoother emulsion and gives me a little bit of air. You can see some air bubbles there. So it makes it just a little lighter. I like that. And you can also tell, because it lightens it up. So if you notice, it was much darker before. I put my stick blender in there and added air to it. So this is the point where it's going to be the most liquid. Now, if you're us, you'd probably pour it like this, but, okay, so we're just going to go ahead and put it in our measuring cup. Getting all of that beautiful chocolate out of there. If you're confident, you can pour it out of a rolled edge pot into your pose, into your little pot of creme molds, and by all means do that. Set that there. And then we're just going to go ahead and fill them up. Yeah, this could be put in any container. It could be a small glass jar. It could be a small glass. It could be, if you're like me, it could be a large glass. So whatever size you want to use. This is a classic pot for the creme. So there we have it. So just one more teaching point. We always just tap it lightly, just to make sure that the pot de creme gets a nice even layer there. So in case there's anything there, we want to make sure we just like that. Very simple. I'll place them in the refrigerator for 4 hours. I would suggest just laying a piece of plastic wrap lightly over that. We don't want to have any odors from our refrigerators to diminish the quality of our flavor of our chocolate. They can stay longer than 4 hours as well, but I would suggest that you take them out. Let them temper a little bit. Remember, chocolate, when it gets cold, it gets hard again. We want to make sure that we're taking it out a little bit ahead of time, maybe half an hour, to let it temper somewhat so it becomes more palatable. All right, we've had these out for about a half an hour. For an example, I want to see where we are in terms of texture so we can share this together. Yeah. My spoon goes in nice and gently, and look at that. Look at how smooth and creamy that is. I don't want to put the whole thing in I would put the whole thing in my mouth, except I'm on camera, so I'm just going to set it back in there. But I do want to taste it. But look at that, see? Shiny, creamy, emulsified. Anyway, we have a little whipped cream here. We flavored our whipped cream with vanilla. We sweeten it with a little bit of sugar. And we're just going to put a little bit on top of each one. Whoop, fell right. See, I had the hot water there, which helped that just fall right on top. Hot spoon, cold cream, beautiful tempered chocolate. Take a little bit of our shaved chocolate, right on top. Boom, boom. Can't wait. Dark chocolate, pot de creme.